with the fourth seminar of India at Almadalan Future Urbanisms. We've all heard the news, we've all seen the headlines. Cape Town is bone dry, we know that. Bangalore in India is predicted to get bone dry next year, we fear that. And Gotland, where we are standing today, is facing a water crisis for the last 2 or 3 years. Well, these are three very different regions, very different topographies, but facing a similar crisis. So what are we doing so wrong that we've reached a tipping point in different corners of the world? How do we build a new biocircular economy which is sustainable for us and our future generations? And that's the water and energy challenge that I put forth for you all, our panelists today. I begin by introducing Helena Andersson. She's an eco-strategist with Region Gotland, here on Gotland. Swaminathan Ramanathan, he's with the Department of Anthropology and Ethnology with the Uppsala University, and one of the two men behind the Future Urbanisms program. Rupali Deshmukh, Senior Coordinator and the Business Development and Marketing expert with IVL. You're also a water conservation expert. And Mats Karlstrom, who is Vice President Sales and Marketing with Ferroamp Electronic, also working with clean energies. So let's begin. Helena, can I invite you here for your presentation? And we can use with some help of yours as well. Yeah. We each of you all have about 4 minutes, and then we would have a question and answer session.
Okay. Oh, you're making it dark. So I hope we can enlighten this screen again, maybe. Can I get some help?
It's on. It's on.
It's on, okay, okay. Thank you. So my name is Helena Andersson, and in this case, I'm going to talk about energy more than about water, because I was asked to come here instead of the National Energy Agency, who could unfortunately not be here today. But the energy challenge is, together with the water challenge, the two main challenges that we've identified for an ecological, sustainable society on Gotland. And of course, we've been working with those issues for quite a long time now. We've been an eco-municipality since the early 90s. We had in our strategic vision for Gotland that energy and water challenges must be solved. So, of course, we were excited when 2 years ago the Swedish government told the National Energy Agency to conduct a feasibility study for how Gotland can become an energy pilot, and then also with cooperation from many local actors and other national actors, also developed a roadmap for how Gotland can become an energy pilot to reach the national energy goals in advance to the rest of the country. Of course, we would like to have more. You know, it's always like that. You know, development starts not with national regulatories. Development starts with entrepreneurs and people who want to make something different for the livelihood where they are active and where they live, and probably as they love. There are many people on Gotland who really been active in the water issue, but maybe even more or for a longer time in the energy issue. So it's been interesting to see this top-down perspective that the National Energy Agency has put on the situation that we have. So their mission is to co-create together with us, local entrepreneurs on Gotland, other national bodies. There are a handful of them which means a lot in this case, but also, of course, find out how they can use their resources and their knowledge to implement a change on Gotland as fast as possible, because that was the mission explicit from the government. You have to make change as fast as possible. Don't think so much about the innovations, but think about how you can make change faster. So the measures and instruments, finance and responsibilities, it was a very big idea that the measures on Gotland shall be scalable for the rest of the country and eventually for the rest of the world. And of course, there was also this mission that we shall work together with other parts of Sweden, but also other parts of Europe, and if possible, other parts of the world. And we shall not only make it renewable and sustainable, but also contribute to a secure energy supply. That's very important nowadays. And of course, we want to have this arena for tests. Gotland has always been known as a good test site. So we think maybe that's why the government pointed out Gotland as the pilot for energy transition. Because Gotland is like Sweden, if you want, in small scale. We have this huge industry. We have a lot of renewable possibilities. We have heavily dependency upon transport. So we have a lot of issues to solve, but we also have a lot of opportunities. So the interesting thing is that this is not a plan that you develop and then leave it for the shelf. They have a long-term mission to follow up and coordinate and put forward. So we are not done until we are done, and that's the good thing about this, I think. Of course, there's been a lot of other, not only the National Energy Agency, but also we, the municipality or region, the military actually, a lot of people on Gotland, and a lot of organizations. And this is the roadmap, very short. We have, first and last, we have to have this local commitment, otherwise it won't work. You can't sit in Stockholm or in the government and decide if you don't have local commitment as well. But a lot of measures that we have, they rely upon the electrical grid. I think you have the same situation in India, that we have a lot of biofuel that we can use. We have a lot of maybe imported fossil fuel that we want to get rid of, and a lot of the transition ends up with electrification as the solution. So a lot of measures ends up with the electrical grid. And of course we have to have this industrial transition, and of course we have to have a lot of regulatory work to get that through. Otherwise, that's something that we can't do on our own on Gotland, or not even in Sweden. We have to have international rules in place as well. For us who lives here, we are very dependent upon transport. So that's our main challenge. How can we solve the mobility? And some of you were talking about that earlier today. There are solutions, but there's also a lot of works and a lot of transitional mode in your mind that has to be done for that to be able to work. So that's our main challenge, I would say, on the local level. Of course, we have buildings, a lot of buildings that has to be much more energy efficient. You know that we have a cultural heritage here on Gotland, but not only that, we also have a lot of old buildings. We build about 1,000 new homes per year, maybe, but many of those homes that we build new every year, they are holiday homes, and somehow people don't seem to think so much about energy for their holiday homes. That's too bad, because if you have money enough to spend on a holiday home, then maybe you have money enough to spend on your energy bill as well, so that's not a problem. But it's a problem when it comes to a fair share of how much energy everybody shall use. Gotland is not only a tourist destination, it's also an agriculture area, and that's a hard challenge for the agriculture sector to get rid of the fossil fuels. So that's a very exciting part of this pilot program, to work on how to make the food production free from the dependency upon fossil fuels. And of course, this safe and secure energy supply system is also a very important thing to work with. We live in an area that is very close to borders. So just very short about one of those items of work, the electricity grid. To secure supply, the grid, that's not something that we can do on our own. It has to be done by national companies, Vattenfall, for example. A local market for flexibility. We can create it on Gotland if we have support from others. So that's done with an international project. And a new regulatory scheme for how to make market on the electricity grid. Yes, we can develop that here, but not on our own. So that has to be done together with others in a project. And study rules and business possibilities and models, that's also ongoing. So this huge theme with the electrical grid, that's not something that we can't do on our own, but the Energy Center Gotland, the local commitment and capacity part, that's something that has to be done by our own community. And people on Gotland, companies on Gotland, and institutions on Gotland. So we think that it's a fair share that we take care of the energy center for us in the region in cooperation with others. So that's what we will start right now, to develop this center as one part of the measures in the pilot plan for Gotland. And we think that in that center we will have to support the outcome of different projects. We will have to support people who want to do things, but also visualize the transition and the change on Gotland. And I'm sure that in that center, people will come and discuss not only energy, but also water. Because water and energy, it's infrastructure that belongs together. And we know in our own operations in the region, we have responsibility for a lot of buildings, houses, schools, and so on, where we think we have solved the energy situation to a large content. We have made a transition from fossil fuels, and we've made a lot of energy efficiency. Of course, there are lots more to do, but have a very good work there for a long time. But then, in the water situation, we see now that we need more energy to solve the situation, so we work with solar cells for the new water plants, but that does not really produce all the electricity that we need for the water situation, but it's a part of it. So we have a long way to go further in the energy efficiency measures for the water and wastewater part of our production. Yeah. So what I would like to say, we have something that we can show that's already done, but we still have a long way to go. But we are very grateful for this opportunity to become an energy pilot. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you.
I think that there are a lot of pointers. I think that we can take it. Sort of. This is almost like a model which we can take in other parts of the world as well. So thanks for sharing this. Can I call Rupali now? She's my namesake, but yeah. So we'll load up your presentation, but you have done, Rupali, you've also done some experiments here on Gotland,
yes,
right?
We have a taste bed in a Gotland, and we are working together with Gotland. Yeah. So yeah. I'm mainly here to talk about water scarcity, but I will try to touch how we try to present a solution to come on energy crisis as well during my presentation. So first of all, I work with IVL. IVL is Swedish Environmental Research Institute. We are jointly owned by Swedish government and Swedish industry. We established 1 year before Swedish EPA. So just to know. And then we have around 300 employees. We have different scientists in different areas. We have experts working in waste, water, air areas during since last 40 years. Stockholm at Tekniska, but we have offices in Gothenburg, Malmö, Mumbai. Recently we have started in Mumbai, and then we have 2 offices in China, that is in Beijing and Wuhan. So as many has pointed out, Sweden is very small. We are just 10 million people. How we can make an impact even if we are an innovative country? So IVL work on this model where we work with the end user to know what they are looking for, what are their problems, and then we work with the suppliers. To bring a base technology on a table, we would like to know what are their needs and what supplier can bring it on table. And then we make some alteration, we make some suggestion and bring the base technology to work on different crises or different problems. We believe globally also, or like in India also, they should work on the same model, because as CII expert rightly said that it is good to collaborate with the local partners. So we need to know the local technologies also, local knowledge also. So I think it is a based model to work, to bring a base technology to work either on water crisis or waste crisis. So today is all about India. I would like to show like what IVL is doing in India. We are not new to India. We are working in India since 1970. Our first project was with oil spill on coastal area. Since then, we are working on several projects in India. We worked with CII. We worked with TERI. We established environmental laboratory. We are working on several capacity building on cleaner production project. We were a part of Scania's biogas project, which wasn't successful, but we did our good part in that project. Then IVL is currently working in 3 important projects. One is Pune, Pimpri, and in Mumbai. So Pune Waste to Energy project is financed by this philanthropic person called Mr. Adar Punawala, who is financing our project. So we carried out a pre-feasibility study for waste to energy in Pune, and we found that the calorific value of waste in Pune is really good, so you can recover fairly amount of energy. Then we have another 2 projects in Mumbai, STP, like sewage treatment plant, where we are trying to bring some Swedish knowledge, where they can see how they can make the changes or how they can reuse the water. IVL is a part of Smart City Team India group, which is led by Technic for Thogen together with SIBC. And through that platform, we visited Pimpri, and now IVL has been, we signed the MOU with Pimpri that IVL will be the advisor for STP upgrade. So there is a scope for bringing Swedish knowledge to Pimpri as well, and Pimpri has many Swedish industries, so Sweden is fairly present in Pimpri. Now, like I mentioned earlier, that IVL has started an office in India, in Mumbai, and it called now IVL India Environmental R&D Limited. So let me tell you about how India and Sweden are connected. The knowledge transfer will not be only from one side. Like we are not superior, India is not. So we are bringing some knowledge from Indian small village called Ralegan Siddhi. That became a news. I was on newspaper. So yeah, so Swami's earlier presentation showed a photo of Mr. Popat Pawar. Popat Pawar also got inspired by the work done in Ralegan Siddhi. Ralegan Siddhi's work is done under a guidance of big social activist Anna Hazare. So there were similarities between Ralegan Siddhi and Stur Sudred. The geological condition in Stur Sudred was fairly similar to what Ralegan Siddhi has. Then the amount of rainfall was similar, and the problems were similar, like runoff and all. So IVL took this project together with Region Gotland and other partner. You can see, of course, Uppsala University is our another partner. And we are developing this project where we are trying to verify the conditions and bringing the innovative system for sustainable water supply. Mm-hmm. So what we did in Stur Sudred till now. So we have installed the online sensor to measure where we can store water underground, where we can bring the water as a runoff is too high. All the water coming on the coming in the Gotland, Stur is going to sea. So we have to conserve that within that area. So we have installed the online sensor. The sensor system was developed by in situ and the installation done by IVL together with Region Gotland and local stakeholders. We have also measured the stream flow in the big ditches in Gotland. So we can change the water flow in the ditches according to wet and dry conditions. So this is also connected to the weather station in Gotland, Stur. As I told you earlier, we have the artificial pond where we are going to save the water. Then another, our idea is to, we discussed that with the Region Gotland, and Region Gotland has decided to rebuild the wastewater treatment plant in Burusvik. Currently, the wastewater from the Burusvik is transported to the north side, but now they have decided to rebuild this plant, and our idea is to reuse 1/5 of water from the wastewater treatment plant and bring it to the groundwater so we can reuse it. And this, the technology will be suggested by IVL and ENVA. So I think that will be another reuse recycle project. Now I will just, you can make the difference. Like today's wastewater municipality, how they run. You get the wastewater, then there is a high greenhouse gas emission. You need lot of energy to run those plants. Then there is a sludge problem, and influent coming out of wastewater treatment plant is not good. That is polluting your environment. So, and if you try to reduce this energy to run the plant, then the green gas, gas emission is 300% more if you try to reduce 1% of energy. So this is dangerous. So what we feel, what IVL feel, we see wastewater treatment plant as a production facility where we bring the wastewater into the production facility. We try to recover a nutrient, phosphorus, and then we also same time take the energy out. And whatever influent standard we are getting after treating our wastewater is really good, that you can bring it back to the use. So we are focusing on circular economy. We have, together with KTH, we run Europe's biggest pilot facility where we test different technology which are good for wastewater treatment, and we have the 5 parallel lines. We have the expert working around the clock there, and to prove our point that the technology suggested by us are good, the water coming out from wastewater treatment plant is a portable standard. We brewed a beer last year from our pilot facility, and it was a big hit.
I hope you've got this for all of us here.
Yeah, we actually last year it was in Almadolan. So this year we did not produce. We don't want to earn money by selling alcohol. We want to sell our technology. So this became big hit. Quickly, now I feel as a water crisis are increasing in India every other day. So the mindset is changing in Indian society. Indian cities are adopting recycle reuse of water policy, and they are becoming open, at least for non-potable use. They are open now, and we feel as IVL is working in many municipalities, we are suggesting them some making the changes in their policy, and we are trying to encourage them to adapt this, because this is the only solution today we have to come around water crisis. And now, as I told you, IVL has 4 important projects in Mumbai and one as an advisor in Pimpri. So hopefully we will try to help India, not whole India, but at least a few cities come around water crisis.
Right.
Just one quickly, this is the very unique project IVL run in West Bengal. So this project touched SDG 1, SDG 2, SDG 3 and SDG 14. This is the very innovative technology where we conserve water from fog and dew, because this area don't receive the enough rain. So there is an intermediate rainfall. So we conserve water from fog and dew, and then we lay the sponge underneath. So it was keeping soil moist for a longer period, and you can take only a short root crop in this situation. And as I mentioned, we touched SDG 1, the reducing poverty, SDG 2, hunger problem, SDG 3, and SDG 13, climate action. So we are very proud about this project.
Right.
So together we can make a difference and bring good technology to India. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rupali. I'm going to quickly ask Max to come over and make his presentation. Can you go back to the main slide? All right. All yours. Yeah.
Okay. So we're in the very beginning of an energy transition. I don't have any images. It was not enough time to prepare for that. We're in the very beginning of an energy transition. And as the word mentioned, we have to change something. Something is changing, whether we like it or not, and we have to adapt to it. We can adopt as reactions, or we can plan, and we can be proactive. So if you look at the traditional electrical grid, it is a big grid machine. It's a machine that keeps balance on incoming energy from production units and consumption in a lot of different spots. It's a machine that ties into other countries' electrical grid machines. And that's the way it's been run for ages. But the last number of years, we've seen a change where the production that we relied on, the nuclear power in this country, is going down. We are closing down nuclear plants. At the same time, we build wind farms and now also adding PV solar on our roofs. So all of a sudden, this grid machine has to cope, has to change with the same infrastructure, same technology. There is a stress situation happening right now. Last year, we had very high cost for the balance of the grid machine, if I put it mildly. And it will just increase. The more of the nuclear power that is leaving, and the more renewable energy coming in, because there has to be a balance between production and consumption. And that is a physical law. That is not only Sweden, that's all over the world where we have this energy transition. So, of course, some of it could be solved with storage. We could store in heat, we could store in electricity, we can also store in levitation, if you like. You can store water in a higher place, so when you then have to use it, you can then take it down with less energy. And there are tons of ways that you can store and use energy to balance out these differences between manufacturing or production and consumption. But what is lacking in Swedish facilities, and I would say to some extent Swedish mentality, is to be active in this role as a consumer. We're waiting for these top-to-down directives. The laws should be in place. The technology or the laws and the subsidies have to be in place before I act as an individual. But history shows that it is the individuals that really want to see change. If you look at the action right now on the PV area in Sweden, and the PV market, where photoelectric energy is generated on our roofs, the initiators are the BRF shareholders, if you like it, or homeowners. They want to be part of it. They want to be active. The things that prevent an expansion right now is lack of direction, lack of political initiative, clear strategies. And all of this has to be balanced as soon as possible in every country. Now, you have the big machine. It can run as it has done all time long, and we have to invest even more money into this machine. But it can also be transferred into a lean green machine. if it starts to cooperate with facilities that are not load points, not stupid load points that just consume energy whenever it wants, but to be more active with storage inside, with controlled loads and controlled production. That will allow us to have more flexibility. It's easier to build, it's easier to expand, but the facilities or a campus or an industrial facility or a region or a district or a block can be more self-sufficient, can cooperate within themselves and cooperate with this grid machine to make the grid better. Our technology, we come from we happen to come into this this arena or this technology because we solved the Swedish problem that is related to our grid connection. So by default, our technology of taking care of PV electric, storing energy in batteries, or load control of different loads within a facility has its origin from our grid connection. So we're not focusing only on producing PV when the sun shines and how we store energy. We're more interested how we discharge our energy to protect the mains fuse or the grid connection to go out of control. So our focus with our technology, we just ended up there, but our technology is based on being the more active part in this new future. So we are already there. Our facilities with FerroAmp technology, they are already ready. They are already focusing on the power as well as energy. So when the grid, the big green grid lean machine is there, and we have players, when we have actors, we have new business models, our technology can plug right into those. And as our facility customers do, they look at their big facilities as machines. They run it in a certain way. They have now changed from being just reactive to be proactive. So they start installing PV on all their buildings. They add batteries, but not a lot of batteries, but just enough to get started. And then with our technology, when you need more batteries, it's just to add batteries, because we are very early in the battery development technology. And down the road, we will see more sustainable batteries, much cheaper batteries as well, but new energy storage solutions. But it's the mindset we have to start with. Right. I think that's about 4.5 minutes. Or
well, thank you, Mats. You've been quite disciplined about the time. Swami, would you like to give your presentation, and then we might have a little bit of time maybe for a quick question from the audience, perhaps, before I raise a question. Yeah.
So being the last has its advantages, wherein I can just go ahead and try and broaden the debate in some way or the other, and I'll pick off from where Max left about the mindset. So there are two clear issues in my head, and I want to sort of project it outwards and see where it goes. The first is Greta Thunberg and what she's doing and what she's done to our consciousness. It has taken a kid to basically go ahead and throw a huge tantrum and say that I'm not going to go to school and you guys need to do something about it, for us to even pause a little bit. But we haven't changed our ways of working. We've just about paused, we've just about looked around and said that, okay, you know what? There's something to what this girl's saying. That's number one. The number two is the Swedish fika, something that I really love, and I've taken two. Two key ingredients of the Swedish fika, say the kanelbuller and the coffee. The kanel and the coffee don't grow in Sweden at all. But still, I'm able to get a coffee for anywhere between 20 to 25 kroners, and a kanelbuller for anywhere between 15 to 25 kroners. And for me, for all my management training and my economics, I'm still not able to get a sense of how is it possible for us to get a cup of coffee grown in Colombia here for 25 kroners. It just doesn't make economic sense. Having said that, I want to read something from a paper that got published a month back, thanks to Uwe. And I want to read just 2 paragraphs. Not as a solution, not as a framework, but as a thought bubble. So I just want to float it around and see where it goes. Every single activity or aspect of our life is dependent on one and only one thing, energy. Yet we don't typically look at life as an energy balance sheet or a network of energy systems that integrate with each other for specific transactions. But two questions immediately come up: why not, and why shouldn't we? If one were to define energy more broadly and understand it as something that's part and parcel of every aspect of nature and human activity itself, then the energy balance sheet looks completely different. Let's take eating as an example. Each ingredient that goes into cooking a dish has embedded energy in it. To get a little mathematical, let's call the embedded energy X. Of course, like everything else in mathematics, the X will not make any sense if it's not pegged to a standard. In our example, let's call that standard Y. Let's assign Y a numerical value of 0. What that number 0 indicates is how efficiently and effectively is energy being used to produce a particular ingredient or evolve a certain service. One can read 0 as the highest efficiency possible for energy utilization. In short, the energy consumed in creating a product or a service produces or releases the same energy when it's used. Circular. What this would mean is that while the ideal would be 0, energy consumed is equal to energy released, an energy index number that is closer to 0 would be a preferred option in terms of making a particular choice. Assuming the dish is a risotto, the choice would ideally be between different varieties of rice. The embedded energy in each variety of rice would be calculated using a variety of factors, from the amount of water it took to produce 1 kg of rice, which by the way is up to 5,000 liters for producing 1 kilogram of rice.
In India.
Whether the seeds are indigenous and local or genetically engineered or imported, the place at which it is cultivated, the distance it had to travel, the amount of time and where it had to be stored, the kind and amount of pesticides and herbicides that were used. And there are a lot more. All these inputs will be converted into energy and together would constitute the embedded energy of one single ingredient. Such an energy index would be equally applicable to every single ingredient used, from salt, herbs to cheese. In the first instance and at the first glance, such an energy index might appear complicated and too detailed. But a deeper analysis will reveal that the index in itself is not complicated. What might be complicated is the change that is needed to be brought into every single aspect of the value chain. This will create a fundamental change by reducing the current tight embrace of value to monetary value. It will define how value is created and what that value is, and how that value which is created needs to be measured by focusing on energy used and energy embedded as the primary framework of assessment. Such a framework of assessment can be used to evaluate and establish the energy index of practically any set of activities and transactions. And I end my 2 paragraphs here. So this is just a thought bubble, and maybe it just expands the energy debate to a different dimension. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Swami. I think so. You've raised a very crucial point there about the affordability and the use of energy. So, do you use the energy? Say a person living in the heart of a city uses far more energy because they can afford to versus someone in the village, or is it? And then what should be the cost associated with it, apart from the economic costs? I mean, how do you broaden what costs are associated with the use of that energy? But I am going to sort of open the floor this time round, and if anybody does have questions, please raise your hand. If you get a wave from me, then go ahead and ask your question, and I'll repeat it here so that it's clear for everyone. Anyone? On addressing the water and energy challenge? Go ahead, please.
I think the energy index or use things were really interesting. Could you develop
I haven't actually gotten around to developing it. The whole idea of this, so this is part of the Future Urbanisms program that Uwe talked about in the morning, and we want to sort of keep it in a what we are calling as platform thinking and design thinking, where we want to sort of keep it as very bare bones kind of a framework, and we would rather have different kinds of collaborators coming in and filling in the different pieces, because Otherwise, it becomes one or two persons' idea of taking it forward. And if you look at SDG 17, which is partnerships, it's about going ahead and actually giving everyone a voice and sort of putting it together. Crowdsourcing is what we think is required. So in that sense, yes, I do have some ideas of how we can take it forward, but I would rather hear it from different people, get people involved, and because I think that's a lot more robust and sustainable. Yeah, it is an interesting bubble.
I have a point to make. It's not really a question, but an observation that 200 years of colonial subjugation of India, and we saw a time period where a lot of the traditional technologies, a lot of the traditional wisdom also was subjugated. So you had a lot of alien technologies which were superimposed on what were our traditional technologies of water harvesting. There were water tanks in every village, which were patronized by the head of the village, by the local Raja, by the local king or the feudal lord, and those water bodies were protected collectively by society, by the community. And we have lost that over a period of time. So I think we also need to think about bringing back some of those technologies which were actually very useful for us. A lot of these water bodies have dried up because they did not, these technologies were lost over a period of time, decades and decades of colonial rule, and without any patronage, without any support systems, these water bodies not only vanished, but also some of the traditional water harvesting technologies, growing crops in the minimum amount of water. You talked about how much water is required for growing rice, for instance. You know, those kind of technologies have gotten lost over a period of time.
Right.
So I think it's not a bad idea to have a look at where is it that we can bring back some of those interesting technologies that may be still relevant today.
On similar note, like gobar gas, we had it like in the villages, and we are talking about biogas, upscaling it. It's the same thing what our ancestors were doing before. We lost that. So we just have to refresh and bring it back.
So I think, Ambassador, that is an sort of an interesting point that you touch upon. And if I can stretch that a little, when we are talking about indigenous and sort of also taking wisdom, if I can call it that, from the past, a lot of it is also to do with decentralization, because it is quite local. It has perhaps been experimented at a smaller scale, and it also, you can sort of fail fast, and you can sort of make corrective measures. Perhaps Helena and Mads, you might like to attempt sort of, if I can put that question to you on how much, when we talk about water and energy, it has traditionally, or at least in the last 60 to 70 years, been a very centralized approach. How much is it now becoming decentralized, say, from a Swedish perspective?
Yeah, it's definitely going decentralized. So it's good. I thought it was on. I definitely think it's decentralized because it's in the power of people. It's not necessarily 100% in the power of the big decisions. So now any Swede can go and buy their own PV system, put it on their roof, and they can be producers. However, it's not smart production. It's not integrated production. It's bought as a product that works when the sun shines. I think in a lot of aspects, we buy products because people sell products. And the products are designed to fulfill a specific purpose, but not necessarily work together with the other apparatus we have in our homes. And energy is one of those things. We buy products left and right. We turn them on and off by automation and so on, like our heaters, for instance. They run based on the inner temperature of the water in the tank, not if there is sun available, not if there is power shortage, for instance. When the price is low, we could store energy in hot water. If the sun is shining, we should store energy in water as well as in electricity in batteries. Just by connecting products into a system perspective, you get smart interaction. And I believe that it's decentralized because people can do this.
Right.
The problem is supply. People sell products, not systems.
And talking about these system gaps, Helena, if you can take that question. So when one is talking about sort of a last mile connectivity or sort of localization versus, or decentralization versus centralization, where do you all face the gap between the two or between different systems, and why at an administrative level, how do you tackle that gap?
We have a lot of people who want to use their own PVs for producing electricity when the sun shines, and they think that the electrical grid can be like a storage, which it can't. People have hard to understand that, and of course, people who have their own homes would like to take care of their own waters well, if they have one, and they are very aware of the scarcity of water on Gotland, I think. But people who are connected to the common grids, even if it's water or electricity, they are not aware of this supply and shortage in the same way. So there's a lot of need of education, and of course there can be technical solutions that support us with the Internet of Things and so on, with that kind of intelligence. But I also think that there is a lot of mind shift, that there is like a fair share of the electricity and the water anyone can use.
Right. Well, we'll have to wrap it at that. There's a short coffee break before we move on to our next seminar. And thank you so much, Helena. Thank you, Mats. Thank you, Swami. And thank you, Rupali, for your take on this subject.
Thank you.